You know, it's amazing to me how we adapt so easily to intolerable situations, or situations that should be intolerable compared to our normal state. And by normal, I'm diverging from conventional science that looks around and sees everything that's happening and says, well, that's normal. No, it isn't. There are many of us that have memory of where we came from. We're part of the way back there. And this is not normal. And it's like, compared to our formless, timeless, real state, because we're made out of spirit, that's why I refer to this as a dream world. Yeah, I know it feels really solid and real trees and real ground and real physical body that we're wearing, all that, but this is all projected out of reality, which is formless. And I've given up trying to sound normal to you guys at this point. If you're listening, maybe you can relate to what I'm talking about. Our real normal state, you can start out by saying, well, we're not normally designed to be sick and our body's sick and falling apart, and what they call normal aging and degenerative disease and susceptibility to not the nonsense stuff, but the real diseases that sweep over the world. Were designed to have natural immunity to all kinds of hazards and diseases and degeneration, and none of that is normal. We're in a totally abnormal condition there. We're made out of spirit, made in the image of God, and that's unlimited, unconditional love. At least in my experience, okay? If you want to believe in a God that flies into a rage if you disrespect him, this big male figure that's going to love you unless you say the wrong thing and then cut your head off and throw you into hell, you have freedom to do that. I'm saying that many of us remember that this God thing, this original essence or spirit or consciousness that we came from, is real. It didn't get created by beliefs, didn't get created by any great teacher. It existed outside of time, before time, different than time, outside of space, outside of form. It's the essence that all beauty and harmony came from. So what twisted everything apart into the misery that's sweeping over the world and has for tens of thousands of years, with people killing each other, and you look at human history going back as far as we can, and it's one kingdom conquering another kingdom and people cutting each other to shreds, or when they have technology they kill each other with more efficient means. But that's history, and that's ridiculous. That's really hypnotized beings, because we all came from the same place. There weren't different origins. People talk about this concept of star seeds and all that. They're talking about steps along the way. Most of us have passed through locations and lifetimes in many different star systems on the way to, even after we went through all the dimensions above this one. I'm not repeating stuff I've read. I'm talking from experience. And you have experience too. It's just sometimes we forget. This place we ended up, this physical world, there's a lot of beauty all around, especially out here in the wilderness, because it's all made by spirit, it's made by God. But on this level, this dimension, there's more suffering and tragedy and despair and fear and anxiety and all this stuff going on, not just in the human world. If you look deeply into the animal world and the plant world and the birds and the insects, they're all eating each other. They're not having a good time. They're having a temporary good time at points along the way, and then they get torn in half and eaten by a larger creature. This is not our normal state. Even here, things can be redesigned to fit the mold originally. This place has the potential to become heaven on earth, and it's in our hands to do that. But we can't do it unless we start by remembering who we are, not in theory, because that does nothing. If you just have a belief, intellectual belief that everything's great, and subconsciously you're caught in fear, division, condemnation of people, and all the negative frequencies that go with these emotions, then you can't do anything with your belief except tell other people that your belief is better than theirs or something, and then you start a new fight and try to kill each other. This is not our real state. So watching things on the outside with a certain cartel in charge of the world situation, trying to drive it toward total destruction. And I spent decades looking into that and investigating the people all the way to the top levels of control, and above that on the non-human levels. I know where they're going and why and how, implementing the doctrine of sacrifice with the whole biosphere, including themselves, as the sacrificial animal. That does not have a good outcome. A spoiler alert, right? This is not going to be a good ending if we go that way. So many of us are looking at, all right, how do you change it? I mean, really change it, not make some microscopic positive input, but change. The whole trajectory has to be changed. What's happening to humanity and all the life forms here that are being slowly wiped out by the biocide that is going on as part of the sacrifice, that needs to be turned around. I mean, if it isn't, you're not destroyed because you're made out of spirit. You'll get another chance somewhere else. But why wait? Why go through all the junk of, suffering that's so horrible you can't imagine it? Now our rulers are trying to start nuclear war, and they have a lot of ideas of how to do that. American, I wouldn't say leaders, Pelosi is planning a trip to Taiwan, because maybe that'll trigger the Chinese, who've defined that as a red line, to start a war over Taiwan. Maybe we could destroy the world that way. The rulers are so sick that they think they can survive a nuclear war, and that it'll be great, and it'll be a major step in the sacrifice that they're carrying out. It's not something we want to happen. Even they don't know what they're doing. They think they really do. They think they're incredibly clever and super intelligent. They think they've got all the remedies and answers. Just, you look at them and that's not true. They look terrible. They look like I've got dirt all over me. Sorry, I've been sitting on the ground. They're totally out to lunch, and that's a nice way to put it. They're criminally insane, and they intend to take everybody below them out, and they think they'll survive, but their bosses know they're not supposed to survive. The reward for this sacrifice happens on a level that's not physical, and that's where they intend to collect their reward if they can finish off the sacrifice, giving the right notices, following the timelines, all the things that they're supposed to do. And my interest, and probably yours, is that should not happen. And when you realize what's going on here, that there's one character, which is spirit, playing all the parts of the different, or one actor playing all the characters, and that actor comes from spirit, which is unconditional, limitless, infinite love. Nothing about punishments, cutting off the people's heads who are bad, sending people into torture forever because they didn't take their offered chance. That's human ideas of reality. The real reality is something incredible, and it's the same as who you are. And you know that at a deep level. All these beliefs are human constructs that have interpreted what the great teachers have tried to say. In other words, don't worship those great teachers. If you want to worship them and worship God, you do that by changing yourself back to who you are, out of the abnormal, fake identity that we're all carrying. Once that's dropped, the heaven on earth thing is automatic. Everything follows like a wave. And when you understand that all of creation is unified It all comes from one origin, one all-conscious origin of love that is unconditional, as way beyond justice. It's not about flying into rages and punishing people. It's about unconditional love. And how do you share that with somebody else? You have to become that yourself. There's no other way. You can't start a new religion or use an old religion or any religion or philosophy and make other people transform with it. You can make them convert. That's been done a lot, usually by force or by peer pressure or nice, polite threat of burning at the stake or whatever is appropriate. But that doesn't make that transition back to who you are or who they are, which is the whole point. It's not taking on the right belief. That's not going to do it. You have to change. So those of us that are, and I'm not talking about an external change. I think you understand that. I'm not saying we're a label of now I belong to the right group or something. That's all complete distraction and doesn't do it. I'm talking about change. Nobody may see it, but they might wonder, what's going on with that person? You know, they look different somehow. And if we really do it, our physical bodies will completely transform as well, back to reflecting who we really are. The image of God is not junk. It's not imperfect. Mind changes things and warps them. And the mind programs are defining and supporting all the conflict and suffering and horrors that are going on here and on the astral levels above, lower part. So all we have to do, if you get rid of those mind programs that are telling you you're something you're not, which they all are, the fake mind programs are supporting this whole drama and tragedy. And where we come from, there isn't any tragedy. It doesn't exist. And that's your home too. It's everybody's home. It's even the home of the so-called bad guys. But you try to reach the bad guys to say, wake up, bad guy or bad lady. You know, stop torturing and killing everybody as your pastime. They're just going to torture and kill you. They're not real receptive to conversations about this stuff. And yet they have to change back to who they are. They have to get back to the same home that we do. So how do you help them? Because they need help. The people in charge of the destruction of this planet and all the interdimensional beings that are supporting that and setting the energetic foundation of it in the atmosphere of our world, they need help from us, but we're not in a position to give it. So the only way that I can see, and I've been looking at this and working on it for a very long time, it's not physical. The physical things we do are important because they channel the energy that comes from who you are, what you're conscious of. But the physical is not by itself enough. You have to become who you are. You have to stop playing the fake identity. And I think you know what I'm talking about. That you see everybody around you doing the same thing, and we think that common is normal. What everybody else does is normal. That's a basic mistake in reasoning. You know, common and normal have nothing to do with each other, especially now when common is insane. We don't have to be insane. So there are people working on consciousness, not the kumbaya thing to make yourself feel fine while everything's destroyed. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about the forgotten levels of consciousness that can change the physical world and change the behavior of other people by reminding them who they are, connecting them to themselves. That level of consciousness that is actionable and actually has physically visible results. And in our meetings recently in Planetary Healing Club, we've talked, I think you could relate to this, we've talked about, well, if that's true, where's the proof? And there is proof, but it's on a small scale. And we talked about the 5 clues. Violent crime being reduced by meditation, to, you know, criminals deciding not to do their crimes, not even knowing why. Talked about the Emoto water experiment, changing the molecular arrangement of the lattice structure in water of the H2O molecules just by focused intent, not thought, but emotion. Thought doesn't have the power, it's the associated emotion that does. We talked about the already done doctors in China, that Americans and everybody used to go on tour and have their diseases cured without drugs, without being touched. And these doctors were trained to get into the experiential mindset emotionally that the patient is cured. And you can't fake this. If you fake it, nothing happens. These doctors achieved it, these great Chinese doctors. And we saw on video a lady getting her bladder cancer cured in less than 3 minutes. It disappeared on the screen. We talked about Dr. Bankston, who's been a guest on Lost Arts radio show multiple times, twice that I know of. And he learned to cure mice inflicted with deadly cancer without taking them out of the cage, without touching them, without feeding them anything different, without any of that stuff. And it wasn't by forceful projection of intent. It was by creating an emotional state inside himself that how would he feel if he walked into the lab the next morning and the mice were all cured. That state, which you can't just make believe you're in, that state he really got into. And what happened? All the mice got cured multiple times, and he taught other people to do it. Why is this not all over the news? Gee, I wonder. Our media is criminal. Our entertainment industry is criminal. There are people within it who are good, but the industry is a weapon against society right now worldwide, especially in America, but a lot of other places. Those things that happened, those are clues. Ho'oponopono. I've seen personally the effect of that. These clues show that consciousness and projection of emotion in a certain way can have a positive, uplifting effect on other people. You can misuse it too, which is what the people who are in charge of the world know at the upper levels. They are using individuals skilled in projection of energy, and they are putting fear, conflict, condemnation, self-hate, all these things into our atmosphere. The atmosphere of this planet is not just gases, physical gases, it's much more. They're pumping in fear and division, so people can fall for it and become so dumb that they hate each other because of sex or because of race or because of nationality. Nobody who's not hypnotized would ever fall for that. So we're looking at, all right, these clues that have shown what's possible. How can we build on those? Not go slow and slow and slow and take thousands of years to figure out the next thing about it, like conventional science. How can we build on it now? Not to write a paper in the journal, but to actually do something with it. How can we do that quickly? Because if you let yourself be aware of what's going on in the world with the spraying of poison in the air, not only to poison the earth, but to disrupt the weather so that everybody will be terrified of so-called climate change, which is a big hoax, and obey whatever they're told to obey. That's the reason for geoengineering. Kill the people, kill the biosphere, disrupt the weather, create fear of climate change, create fear of global warming, or fear of global cooling will work too. Just fear is the main thing. Be terrified of climate change. And then the rulers come up with a solution. Oh, don't use technology, don't use energy. Live in a coffin apartment in a controlled, surveilled city. That's to save the earth. This is the outcome of where they're going with the climate change scam. Don't fall for it. It's all nonsense. The figures that show it's getting warmer and warmer, those are what they call adjusted figures, come out of UN-controlled agencies. It's all to convey fear and create control and obedience. Don't fall for it. There are real environmental issues. The geoengineering needs to be stopped, but not because of being terrified of climate change. because it's there to kill you, and therefore it should be stopped. Those pilots need to wake up. If they get out of their trance, they could never fly those planes, not spraying poison. So how do you help wake up all those people? How do you take these little clues that come from the Bankston experiment, the water experiment, all the other stuff, and bring them to a level that we need? You know, it's great for the mice involved in the experiment that you can heal a cage of mice, or that somebody can use the Bankston protocol to get a new car or a better marriage, or, you know, things they have done. But we've got a planet to heal. And if you go by the not normal, but accepted speed of fake science nowadays, in about 10 million years, we can form a committee to do a study to lay out the next 10 million years of study. Do you see anything wrong with that picture at all? At all, remotely? Anything? Yeah, we need this now. Not 1,000 years from now, not a year from now, not at the next election. We need it now. And it comes from you. And you probably thought that you weren't that pivotal in the future of the world, but you are. That's the biggest secret, and it's the biggest fear of the global rulers, that you, I'm not talking to the whole audience, I'm talking to you personally. You're super important. Every minute you've got in this form, in this costume before you leave, is of value that's so valuable, you can't even put it in words. So their biggest fear is that you break your conditioning and snap out of your trance. And the same with me, the same with all of us. We're not only one family, we're one being. That's why you can love your neighbor or your enemy as yourself, because, spoiler alert, the secret is they are yourself in another form, struggling under the imprisonment of more false programs, just like you are and I am. If we weren't, you can't even imagine what we would even look like. And we got to get back to that now. Time for a break in history. No more empires conquering and killing each other. That phase should end. We got something better to do. So the question, you know, that's why we formed Planetary Healing Club. If you want to be in that with us and be there to work, it's a real supportive environment, but the work is all internal. And it affects everything you do externally in your daily life. So if you want to join us, please do. planetaryhealingclub.com. If you got questions about it, feel free to write. But the point is, what we're really looking at there the most, we can talk about physical health issues, and I'm not a medical doctor. So we're not prescribing or diagnosing or anything, but we can share forgotten health information that then you can use yourself at your discretion. But that's not the main focus. That is part of it. Taking care of your physical body is really helpful, because you can do your real work better when you're not suffering with physical ailments. Really important, thing to take into account. But the main thing is, how do you get back in touch with who you are, who God made you to be, which is not this programming. It's not these stupid beliefs of limitation and that most people are bad and need to be punished. This is so low level, you guys. We come from a place that is way different than that. It's not who you are. And I'm talking to the people playing the role of the bad guys. I'm going to make videos just for you soon, for the enforcers, for the police, for the military, for the people working for the health agencies, for everybody who's carrying out just following orders that turn out to be destructive of life. I want to talk to you. You don't know who you are, but it's there. You come back to who you are, and then see what you feel like doing. And you won't want to destroy anybody. You'll want to wake them up. You'll be so powerful that you won't be afraid or intimidated by belligerent criminals. You'll say, this belligerent criminal thinks that's who he is or she is. We know who they really are, and we can give them a taste of that. But you don't get that power unless we do the work inside ourselves first. So looking, there's a system. One of the clues we talked about is called Ho'oponopono, and it's one of these clues that showed amazing examples of consciousness, focused intent and emotion, changing people's physical situation and helping mentally ill people get better, helping all kinds of relationships get better, enough to be clear that consciousness was affecting other people's behavior, helping them and helping situations. Yeah, that's great. But it just stopped. It's not scaled up. We're not moving fast enough. We're not moving nearly fast enough to learn how to use these things. And then the all-important ingredient, doing it once you understand. Making it the default new direction that's controlling your life, because it brings you back to who you always were, that we forgot long ago. So how can we build those up? And my investigation of that is moving so fast, and it has to, that I was going to make this video today about Ho'oponopono and how to use it on a deeper level. And I'm seeing now we need to go beyond that. We need to step into a dimension of being and of reality and of perception that is not even close to where we've been. And I want to talk about that in the Saturday meeting coming up in Planetary Healing Club, and then I want us to practice quickly, because transform ourselves. And it's not something you can fake. You can't have a certain posture or facial expression or use impressive words like scientists are trained to do. That's all irrelevant. You have to change inside radically into who you are. And that opens up what used to be our normal abilities. And we have to use that to help ourselves first and then everybody else. It's contagious. There is a contagion. It doesn't need any vectors of transmission. It's consciousness to consciousness. Whatever you become, you can share, nothing else. And what it is flows through you. So we need to get there soon. We need to move and use our time well. So if you want to join us, planetaryhealingclub.com. We're there interactive live every Saturday evening, US time. But if you understand the importance of what we're talking about here, and you're anywhere in the world, even if you have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to join us, if you're in somewhere in Asia or Africa or somewhere where the time zone's difficult because it's different, do it. You will do it, because you'll realize how important it is. So if you get a hold of this video and you're somewhere in Africa or Western Asia or somewhere where the time zone is really difficult, and you are fortunate to have the perception of what kind of being you really are and the urgency to get back to it. Not something that, okay, the teacher says, just repeat this mantra and in your next lifetime you'll really be better. We don't have time. Time is irrelevant anyway. It's a partial, it's a projection of consciousness. In reality, there's no time. So that means you're not stuck having to take a certain large amount of time to achieve something. You can do it in whatever time you think it's possible to do it. But it can't be a superficial thought about it. It's got to be what you have a deep emotional knowing about. That's your real belief. And most people don't even know what they believe on that level. They're not aware of it. We're going to have to become aware of all that and transform it. So I'm just echoing what we've seen in so many other places. The Emerald Tablets quoted Thoth as saying to his students, all you have to do is transform darkness to light. And in the Bible it says all you have to do is love everyone else as yourself, not euphemistically, really seeing them as yourself, and love God where you came from with all your heart. So these things indicate a change of consciousness, because you can't do that with a belief. You can't say, I love God, I love God. You haven't even seen what you say you love. I love everybody. No, you don't, because you don't love yourself. You can only share with your feeling to other people what you feel about yourself. And most people don't think very highly of themselves inside. That has to change. The real self that you are is nothing but infinite beauty. So we need to get in touch with that quickly. So instead of making this about Ho'oponopono, I'm just letting you know it's time to go beyond that. Ho'oponopono is useful, but we don't have time to go little by little by little. We need to make a major change. So if that interests you, if you realize the importance of it, planetaryhealingclub.com, or if that doesn't appeal to you, do it whatever way that does appeal to you, but realize the importance of your time. And usually people don't comprehend even a little bit of that until they're leaving, their last day on the planet in this form. And then they leave and they look back on the lifetime and they say, wow, I had no idea. I thought it was just do what everybody else does and, mañana for anything I don't want to do right now. It's no big deal. All this bad stuff's not going to happen to me. Realize now what you were going to realize on the day you die, but do it now. Imagine that this is the last day of your life and you're leaving and you're looking back over your life and you're saying, wow, there's so much I could have done different. I wish I had done whatever it is. I wish I had been more awake and valued my time. And this is in the future and you're dying and you ask God or an angel or whoever you're talking to, do you think I could have another chance? I wish I could go back all the way back, say way back there to 2022, say. And God says, are you going to make use of it? And you say, I won't forget. So God said, yes, go. Do it the way you should have done it. Here we are. What are you going to do? LostArtsRadio.com. Stay in touch. Got a lot of free material there. Got a donate button if you want to help us stay on the air. Commercial free material that we're putting out all the time. There's a Subscribe Star link that also donates to the nonprofit that we've got. So does the donate button. And you can help us share links. But the main thing, the most important thing, is what now you got sent back to 2022 in our little scenario there. Are you going to remember? Are you going to use the time? When are you going to start? I'll see you here soon. We'll be back for more. Stay in touch.